Hello and welcome to the Recovery Matters podcast from CCAR, the podcast where putting recovery first is always the goal. Here we present interviews, discussions, stories, and speeches to cultivate the understanding and acceptance of the power, hope, and healing of recovery from alcohol and other addictions. Here are your hosts, Phil and Sandy Valentine.
Philip.
Hello, Sandy.
Do you remember one of our earlier podcasts where I shared a 27-year resentment with you?
Kind of.
So you had a sponsor in your early recovery that gave you a lot of wisdom. And he said that you had no business being in a relationship your first year after your marriage broke up. And I had no business being in a relationship my first year in recovery. And today, I absolutely believe that is wise, sage advice.
We didn't think so at the time, did we?
No.
Well, actually, I thought it was sage advice, but I wasn't going to take it.
I still had some terminal uniqueness left to me. And so I thought, there is no way I'm going to let him be right about this. And so sometimes I've attributed the longevity of our relationship to this resentment that I'm going to stay married to you till one of us is buried because I want to win. Mm-hmm. I want to win. And that person is our special guest today. Hi, Rick.
Hello, Sandy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm still hanging on.
You keep that resentment as long as it helps you stay married.
And I'm still happy to share the advice, which I think is definitely valid and true. I do share that with others, but I'm hanging on to that resentment because I'm hanging on to Philip for a while longer anyway.
Well, our guest today is Rick, a very special person in my recovery. For the last 30 plus years, he was around when I started my recovery journey. Rick, you have 45 years in recovery? Is that right?
Almost 46, yes.
Yeah, you don't look that old.
I know. That's what sobriety does for you.
It's an extraordinary journey, and I mention you in so many different ways, and you've been a powerful piece of, for me, as support in the growth of CCAR and my recovery, and now I think, since the pandemic, we haven't been able to have the breakfast like we used to, but I think we're getting close. Yeah, and I've really appreciated our conversations over the years.
And so have I.
Yeah.
And me, because
Yes.
Phil is usually better after a conversation with you. And I don't need to know the content of the conversation. I just know he's better to be around. So I appreciate you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I thank you for taking the time to come in and maybe stretch yourself a little bit with all this technology and the podcast and everything. But I'm very curious to hear about your recovery story. I've heard it, and I've heard it said certain ways. But what was it like for you growing up? Where'd you grow up? We'll start there, as far back as you can remember.
Sure. I grew up in the ghetto section of Stamford.
There's not a ghetto section of Stanford.
There is a ghetto section in Stamford, believe. At least there was in 1948. And I'm the only child of two alcoholic parents. So when I walked out the front door, it was dangerous. It was dangerous. And, I'm a big believer that the mind absorbs the environment. And this was something that I took with me when I went out. I wasn't safe inside and I wasn't safe outside. It was dangerous. And in that process, I became dangerous. I was dangerous in a way that because I could not control my emotions. Fear was prevalent. Anxiety was everywhere. So, I had to protect myself. And part of that protection was to become very devious, It also taught me how to be intimidating, which actually worked pretty good when I became a sponsor.
Yeah.
But it all started with, if you attack me, you are in grave danger. And that's kind of the way I grew up. And I would hide it for a certain period of time, and for something inside me, there is an invisible line where if you cross that line, either you ridicule me or you threaten me or something of that nature, or frighten me, I lose all conscience. And I've done some things in my youth that probably would have put me into prison had I been caught.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very good at not getting caught.
So this sounds like you're a fighter? You could fight?
Yes.
Were you more of a boxer?
No,
No.
I was a street fighter.
Yeah.
I was a
whatever it
street
took.
fighter. First day in school, I walked into kindergarten at race school, Stanford. I got beat up
Why?
because that's what they did with the first day in school.
Wow.
Second day in school, I brought a bat.
Whoa.
I never got beat up again.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, that's just the type of person
No, that's
I
a
was.
powerful example.
So I'm not that person anymore.
No.
But the strange thing is, I know the invisible line is still there.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be very careful that I don't put myself in a position. Because when I drank, the line got closer and closer and closer.
Mm-hmm.
And, once you see someone who's disconnected from their conscience, you want to avoid that person. So
There is a part of you that I think even you alluded to it about helping people in recovery, being a little intimidating. It's almost people can sense you have that line. Do you sense that?
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's just who I am.
Yeah.
The great thing is, though, when I was about 11 or 12 years old, my father went into the program.
Mm-hmm.
And he took my mother, kicking and screaming, into the program. So when I was in my early teen years, I was the beneficiary of a lot of amends.
Mm-hmm.
And because attitudes are contagious, and once you sober somebody up, inevitably their attitude improves, I was able to be blessed by their new attitudes, their sober, recovering attitudes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an interesting time. I didn't exactly know what was going on, but I knew that something had changed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that they had had their own spiritual experience, and this would change me to a certain degree. However, because I had spent 12 years under the tutelage of darkness and drinking, those seeds were planted very deep. And even though my protestations of I'll never drink like they did, once I picked up the first drink, good intentions are spit on by addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to, begin my own battle.
When was the first drink? Do you remember it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember it vividly. I was down at Tony's Drive-In at Chopin Point in Stanford. And in Tony's Drive-In, the guy's son who owned the place was a 25-year-old kid, and he had an apartment above the hot dog stand. There was a hot dog stand. And he invited a bunch of us kids who were hanging around, come on up. And I don't know what his motive was, but we ended up he had, some type of liquor. And it wasn't whiskey, but it was Southern Comfort, I think.
Ugh.
Oh, yeah. And so he gave us all a little bit of Southern Comfort. And I drank it, and no big deal. Went home. My mother smelled it. She almost hit the roof.
Wow.
But my parents never said anything about this. And I think they maybe felt guilty or hypocritical to say, oh, you shouldn't drink after their, horrific lifestyles. But That was it. That was it. Second drink, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But all I knew was that once I drank, it allowed me to live in the delusions easier.
Mm-hmm.
The delusions that I was okay, the delusions that I was tough. It allowed me to deny the anxiety of I'm not good enough,
Mm-hmm.
or some of the, issues that I got into, because we were very, very poor.
Yeah, what
And
did your mom and dad do?
my father, when he finally sobered up, my father was kind of a gutter drunk. He bounced from one place to the other. And I have memories of having to go and pull him out of the bars when I was 7 or 8 years old.
You did?
Yeah, and help him stagger home. And my mother she was more of a stay-at-home drunk. And but I have horror memories of coming home and my mother being dead drunk, naked on the floor. And, these were things which I rarely talk about, and even now, hate to think about. But that was my life. That was my life. So, when I found alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
even though it didn't take long for alcohol to convince me that all that talk about it being dangerous was overzealous. So
Don't believe the hype.
no, just listen to me. I'll take care of you.
Right.
I always laugh. I bought into the first question that was ever asked in the Bible. I know you two are Bible scholars. And,
Scholars. Yeah.
You know what the first question in the Bible is? Satan says to Eve, "You want to be like God?
Yes.
You want to be like God?
Mm-hmm.
Give me a few drinks, and I'm going to feel like I am omnipotent and
Wow.
omniscient and all these other wonderful things."
God-like qualities.
Right, that deny the reality that I'm heading toward, Desolation Row, as Dylan would say. So that was my early days.
So I didn't, I've never heard that story before, but I didn't realize you were so poor. I mean, the first question I have is pretty practical did you always have enough to eat? Would you say?
Well, my sainted Irish Catholic grandmother lived with us,
Oh,
and she had a job, and she paid most of the bills.
wow.
But we lived in a four room, what they call cold water flat.
Mm-hmm.
And she was at the end, and I had a room, and then there was the kitchen, and my parents slept on a sleeping sofa in the other room.
Huh.
And so, I don't remember being hungry, but I remember not having very nice clothes. I remember, crummy sneakers that I wore till they fell off, that type of thing. So, that was, but mostly it was kind of the poverty of love.
Yeah.
This is really what it was. It was a poverty of love, a poverty of feeling safe.
Mm.
And this, stuck with me for a long time. So, I think there's worse types of poverty than financial.
I do too. So you got out, you had these first drinks, and what was high school or college? Talk a little about those years a little bit.
Well, I was always a good athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And
Would you like to play?
I was a basketball player. I was a runner. I was a baseball player. And I did some boxing.
Mm-hmm.
I did some boxing. And this, because my parents were trying to make amends, they sent me to Stanford Catholic High School, where I went, and all of a sudden, talk about not feeling that you fit in. I came from a very multi-racial, multi-ethnic background of kids, who wore hand-me-downs forever, into a private Catholic school with people, kids were driving their own cars at 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did I not fit in, except for two things. One, I was an athlete. And two, I was charming. Okay.
Really?
You were
I
charming.
was charming.
Come on, this
It wasn't real.
You got to tell
It
the
wasn't
truth.
real
You
charm.
gotta tell the truth.
It was,
I believe it.
but it was manipulative charm.
Mm-hmm.
And, that got me in with the ladies. And I never had problems with the ladies at all. And it got me playing sports. But the problem was Stamford is within spitting distance of the New York line. And in New York, the drinking age was 18. And I always looked kind of older. So my father finally got me a car. And I would take the girls out and, have fun, have a nice date. And I'd drop them off. And then I would drive to Portchester, New York, 20-minute ride. And I would sit in the bars in Portchester and drink and feel more comfortable. And the dumpier the bar, the better I felt, because it kind of matched my inside-outside type of mentality. Mm-hmm. And I got an interesting story. It might be interesting. One day I'm sitting in Vosson's Tavern, and famous place back then, eating a roast beef sandwich. And all of a sudden, this guy comes up to the bar and sits next to me and he says, "Hey, bloke, how are you?" And I turn around, who the hell is this? It was some English guy. So he's drinking and I'm drinking, and we're drinking him down. This guy could drink, my type of fellow, all right? Make a long story short, he gets up, got to go back to the show. It was Joe Cocker.
Oh,
No.
I got plastered with Joe Cocker in this crummy bar in Portchester, New York.
Did you know who it was at the time?
No, I did not.
But did you know who Joe Cocker was?
I'd heard his music,
Yeah.
but I had never seen him.
Wow.
Because I don't know if they had videos back
He
then.
was a strange-looking dude.
Oh, he was. And he was a character, and he was funny, and it was interesting. And I met some very interesting people, when I went to college. I was a hippie in the 60s. Long hair, you wouldn't believe it now. But
I've never seen a picture. I got to see a picture
oh,
of
goodness.
you as a hippie
Yeah,
with
I think
long
I
hair.
burned most of them. But we had a lot of fun. And I used to go down to Greenwich Village a lot.
Wow.
With the hippies and walk around Washington Square and whatnot.
Where'd you go to school?
I started out at Seton Hall. And we could just take the subway across the river into Washington Square. I knew New York. I know New York pretty well. I spent hours and hours, days and days in New York. But I'm sitting at the bench, and who comes sitting down next to me but Allen Ginsberg? And we have this 2.5-hour theological, philosophical talk that, we're both what we used to call back then strunk, which was stone drunk. And I wish I could remember the conversation.
Yeah.
And eventually he got up and walked on, and I somehow ended up back in Jersey. And, these are things that is interesting. But it wasn't always fun. One time I was studying for an exam. I wasn't a very good student because I only did, being a manipulator, only did what I had to do to get by or get what I wanted. So I was supposed to take a course in, sociology or something. By now I had transferred to Southern Connecticut because my father had died. Something else happened. But anyway, I'm in Southern Connecticut studying for a test. My buddy calls me up and said, the Beast is in town. The Beast was the name of a guy we knew, big, muscular guy, a friend of ours from college, came back from town. You want to go out? It's his birthday. No, I got to study. I'm going to buy. Okay, I'm going. We go to the bar. We walk into the bar. I barely got up to the thing. And one of the problems with the Beast was he liked the girls, but he liked to pat him on the douche, okay? Give him a little pat on the tush, see if there was any interest. So one day we go into Elwood McGowan's bar with the Beast, and we walk in. We're not 20 feet in there, packed to the brim. Pats this beautiful blonde on the tush. The problem was the beautiful blonde was holding her hands with her gorilla boyfriend. And, all of a sudden we're in a bar room brawl. It is just horrid. The Beast throws the gorilla through the plate glass window. The guy behind the bar takes out a pool cue. We end up in the street, okay? All of a sudden, the police come. I mean, half the police force in New Haven was there. It seemed like at the time. And we ended up right in front of the very first subway they ever had in America near Whaley Avenue. But they're fighting, and all of a sudden, the beast knocks out a cop. Now we're in trouble. Now we're in trouble. They throw him in the paddy wagon. I wanted to go and say something to him. They throw me in the paddy wagon. Just for spite, they mace the whole paddy wagon. Were you ever maced?
No.
Don't volunteer for it, believe me. They maced the inside of the paddy wagon. Another friend of mine comes in. They throw him in the paddy wagon. Okay? We're in the paddy wagon. We're going to the jail in New Haven. And John, the beast, is so strong. In the paddy wagon, they just have a 2x8 nailed, bolted to the floor. He rips the thing right out of the floor. The guys in the front, they have this little window. And the guy, new rookie cop, looks through the window and says, "Oh my God, what do I got here?" We get to the police station. They open the door. We're coughing. We're furious. John's pounding on the back of the thing. "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." He opens the door. I step out, and he puts his gun 2 inches from my nose and says, "Makes one effing move, and I'm going to kill you." I'm 19 years old. I was going to be studying for a sociology test. How did I get into this situation? Because I didn't listen to my conscience.
Yeah.
I chose booze over what was right, and I almost died. And how many people we know who've died because they made the wrong decision? Okay?
What happened to the beast?
The beast died about 10 years after that.
But they...
Oh, yeah, they threw him in jail. They beat the hell out of all of us.
Oh, my
They
gosh.
beat him unmercifully. And he got disturbing the peace and assaulting an officer and spent some time in jail. We got out the next day. But a funny addendum to this story, fast forward 25 years, I'm sober. I'm a retreat director. I'm doing a retreat in Willimantic for people from New Haven. About 20 of them were cops. I tell this story to them. After the meeting was over, this guy walks up to me and he says to me, "I was there." I said, "What?" "Well, you were where?" Because I just was one part of my whole spiel. He said, "I was there that day. I remember that. I was a rookie cop, and they had a 4-point bulletin that there was a riot going on at Elwood McGowan's, and I was there." I said, "Wow, you're my confirmation."
Yeah.
To not do this again.
Right.
To not do this again. Because once you pick up the first drink, all bets are off. You know, in every drink I ever took, I never realized that there was a consequence at the bottom of that drink, whether it was a beer or mixed drink or whatnot. And you never know, because alcohol doesn't tell you what that consequence will be.
No,
it could be, hey, you know, maybe you'll get lucky tonight, Rick, or you'll just have a good time, or maybe you'll have a hangover, or maybe you'll have a cop point a gun in your face and threaten to kill you if you make one more move. And that's at the bottom of every drink, and no one knows what it's going to be. And that's why I haven't gone back. I don't need any more consequences.
So how did things progress? How did things progress while you're at Southern and you survived this?
Well, Southern was a blast. It was hippie times, rock and roll, sex, love, rock and roll, all that type of stuff. And the problem was that it was during the Vietnam War. And the only thing I ever won in my life was the lottery. You know, you're probably too young to remember the lottery.
I do remember it.
But I won, I had a great number in the lottery, and they told me that we are inviting you to join the United States Army. and go shoot people, far, far away. And I said, nah, I don't think so. By this time, I had gotten married. I was blessed by a beautiful girlfriend who became my wife. And we got married, and I actually had a choice to go to Canada. I thought of maybe, going off to Canada. But my father was in the service, and all my uncles were in the service. And there was I wasn't a patriot by any stretch of the imagination, but I did always believe in responsibility and the responsibility to the country. So instead of getting drafted, I joined the Air Force. And, God watches out for drunks and little children, my sponsor used to say. Mm-hmm. And when I was in basic training and they were handing out assignments, 2/3 of my platoon got sent to Da Nang, Vietnam. And I went to Myrtle Beach. Mm-hmm. Myrtle Beach Air Force. Yep. And, no one attacked Myrtle Beach while Rick was on duty, I can tell you that. But the interesting thing was, one time I came back from Myrtle Beach, and I loved the service because you could buy 75-cent 6-packs of beer in the military back then. And I bought a lot of them, and the NCO club, and it was just a great experience for me. I'm a big believer that the service can turn someone around. Unfortunately, I was pretty much gone by then. I was a real drunk. But give you an example, we went back to Stanford one time when I was on leave, and my brother-in-law, who was an avid golfer, said to me, "Geez, how many golf courses did you play in Myrtle Beach?" And I looked at him in all seriousness and I said, "I don't know they had golf courses in Myrtle Beach. I barely knew they had a beach in Myrtle Beach."
Yeah.
Because with all this beauty, all this opportunity, where was I? In a smoky NCO club getting wasted. Mm-hmm. And wasted was a hippie term. But it's the perfect description of what happens to an alcoholic. He gets wasted.
We used to say that too.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was a good time until my father died. And then I was able to get an honorable discharge out of the service, and I ended up back in Stanford. And because of my ability to talk and because of my English degree, I talked myself into a Fortune 500 company job working for Clairol. I had a very big title, a very small paycheck, but a very big title, and access to cocktails at the Westchester Sheraton. Ooh. And down with Bristol Myers and the executives in New York City, and all this type of phony baloney. And I would go there and play the game and, for a while until I got bored with it, and I'd make an excuse, and then I'd go to Bobo's Tavern. Because at Bobo's Tavern, I felt like a big shot. I walked in with my 3-piece suit, and all these bums were there, and I'd buy a drink and all that stuff. And always this disconnect between what I wished I was and what I feared I was. And that anxiety just really, beer after beer after beer. I'm mostly a beer alcoholic. I was a wino also. I was one of the, if I took stock in Boone's Farm wine, I'd have made a fortune. Absolute fortune.
That's Phil's first drink.
Oh my God, I love Boone's Farm. I used to carry 2 or 3 bottles at a time. It was only 99 cents when I started it, and I would have these old overcoats, and I would literally have 2 or 3 bottles of Boone's Farm apple wine. When they made strawberry, I thought I died and went to heaven.
Well, it didn't take much to please you back then.
No, I just went down. Mm-hmm. I was I drank astronomical amounts of beer. I had a tremendous, able to drink beer. But things got worse. And that's what happens when you have an addiction. Things get worse. And if things don't get worse, you get worse. And then you make things worse. Mm-hmm. So, that's what happened. That's what happened through high school and college. And so anyway, I come back from Myrtle Beach. I get out of the service. I get the Fortune 500 company job, and I feel like a total phony. And that feeling was one of the few honest feelings I had, because I was a phony. Because that's, again, what drinking and drugging does. It makes us phonies. It makes us liars. It makes us, people that God did not make us to be, I believe. So, I played the game with Clairol for a while, and because I was getting very sick mentally and emotionally, and I was causing great pain to my wife and to my family, that I figure I got to do something. I was going to move, because that was the problem. Because I was very good with what I call the alcoholic finger, okay? Most powerful finger on your hand. Because with this finger, I could blame you, I could blame you, I could blame you, I could blame God, anybody but me. All right? Because then I became a coward. Addiction makes cowards of us all. So I decided, I'm going to move. And I went from a Fortune 500 company job. My next job was washing dishes for Friendly Ice Cream in West Hartford. And I've said many times that I was probably the most unfriendly person Friendly Ice Cream ever hired. Because by now I had this self-hatred.
Yeah.
And, again, I would emanate this out at other people. And it caused severe problems. I stayed with Friendly Ice Cream as long as I could, and then I got a job at the Postal Service, which I almost lost in the first 3 months because my mind was so shot from booze and drugs that I couldn't memorize a sequence of numbers and streets. And by now, I'm drinking at the crummiest bars you could possibly imagine, where the girls had tattoos and smoked cigars. And, it was horrible. At 27 years old, I was considering suicide. I would drive home to Vernon. I'd have to go under the highway underpass, and it was hard for me not to drive my car into the abutment because I thought everyone would be better off without me. And, one night I went home. My wife said, my mother called, and we had to go to Stamford for something to see them. We had moved up to the Vernon area, and we were going to go to Stamford for a visit for the weekend. And I said, oh, God, because I had to go see the Goddess of Gloom and the Apostle of Pain. That's what I called my in-laws. What they called me was probably a whole different story. So I went down there, and I heard that some friend of a friend of a friend was having a party. Party meant free booze. So, by now I'm old enough to buy my own booze. So I brought some and drank it all, and drank some of yours and some of yours and anybody's I could steal. And my wife had asked me prior to going to the party, please don't get drunk. And I raised my phony right hand and said, I swear I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to get drunk, I said. Not going to get drunk. And at 11 o'clock, I'm wasted. I'm plastered. I can barely talk. And my wife came up to me, beautiful, short little woman that she is, and she says, but you promised. And I huffed and puffed my big butt self up and got in her face and said, get out of my face. I could stop any damn time I want to. I just don't want to. And at that moment, something inside, heard it, didn't hear it, I couldn't tell you today, but a voice said, that's a lie. Once you pick up the first drink or drug, you have no idea when you're going to stop. And that was my spiritual experience, that one moment of honesty in what had decayed into a lifetime of lies. I had to do something. So the next day, or a couple of days after that, the post office had one of the original EAP programs. And I was one of the original members of the program. I picked up my last drink on September 2nd, 1975. Never thinking I'd still be sober.
Yeah.
But, that was it. And I went to the EAP program, and they helped me. They taught me, they told me where to go, and they taught me what to do and what not to do. And I listened for the first time in my life. The old expression, I took the cotton out of my ears and I put it in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, the program was a rough place to be. And they said I should go to the Pathfinders Club, which was where all the, denizens of the darkness lived. And downstairs, I mean, you could hardly see 2 feet away because of the smoke. And they couldn't care less about your feelings. Mm-hmm. They had an expression you may have heard, I'd rather step on your toes than walk on your grave.
Yeah.
And they put it point blank. To drink is to die. To drink is to die. Right out of the big book.
Mm-hmm.
So, I bought in. And, I wasn't too happy in the beginning. My wife certainly wasn't happy. She eventually went to her own program, the other fellowship for members of drunks. And I remember when the meetings would be over, we would hold hands. And I always thought, we hold hands and we hold on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I hate this pandemic. We don't hold hands anymore.
Right.
But, I did it day by day.
So in 1975, you were 27, 28 years old.
Just turned 27.
Hey, you're a pretty young guy. There weren't a lot of people pursuing recovery back then your age, were there?
I was probably one of the youngest people, within 50 miles of here. There were a couple, but I was definitely one of the youngest.
Yeah, I found recovery similar around at age 28. How old were you, Sandy?
26.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, what a great blessing to be able to live decades in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And not come in. I think my father was 52 when he sobered up. So, that was a real blessing. But you go down to Pathfinders Club, and these guys were so old. I mean, they were over 50. It was ridiculous how old these people were. And they were all smoking themselves to death.
Right.
Of course, I was smoking too. Yeah. But, that's kind of where I met my sponsor, which to this day I say was one of the key things in my recovery. Mm-hmm. And he was a tough nut. We had nothing much in common except we couldn't pick up one drink safely. And we bought into this program. And, he would say some pretty tough things to me, And I remember so many. One of them, I don't know if we could put this on podcast, but it's not too bad a story. But anyway, I'm at the meeting, and I'm sober about 10 or 12 months, and I said to him, Dick, I'm not sure I need to stay. I've read the book, I made coffee, I chaired the meeting, I spoke, all this other stuff, like it was a one and done type of thing. And he said to me, well, okay, Rick. He said, well, let's talk about this. He said, do you know who started the program? And I said, yeah, a guy named Bill W. and Dr. Bob. He says, that's right. He says, do you know what kind of doctor Dr. Bob was? I said, yeah, I read the book. See, I'm educated alcoholic, the worst kind. And he said he was a proctologist, I said. He says, you know what they do? I says, yeah, they fix assholes.
Yeah.
He says, you're in the right place, Rick. You need to stay here. You need to do this. You need to work harder. And that was the key. Mm-hmm. I needed to work harder. Because there's no magic fairy dust on these seats.
Right.
That all you do is plop your butt in a chair and all of a sudden you're, the second coming of whomever. You got to work at this. Mm-hmm. So I had to work at it. The steps weren't as big as they are today. I came in before they had step meetings, before they had anything like that. No just book meetings at all. We all had a book, you know, and maybe one of us read it. But I did have the 24-hour book, which I have read diligently for, you know, all these years. And what that did was that gave me insight into the spirituality. I read the other literature, the insight into the spirituality. You know, I had an anniversary one time and someone says, "How'd you do it?" I said, "God did for me what I couldn't do for myself." That's how I did it. Okay. I can't handle this by myself. I could not stop drinking. Well, I could stop drinking. I did it 1,000 times. I couldn't stay stopped.
Right.
Without God's help and without other people's help, because they were the missionaries of God, you know, to a guy who was lost, totally lost. The other interesting thing about my life was the fact that I had a child when I came in, and then we had another child shortly thereafter. And I thought, this is wonderful. A recovery baby, okay? And we're going to grow up together, and everything is going to be wonderful. And about 2.5 years into the program, maybe three years into the program, one day I came home, and my wife is frantic because our little baby, you know, or no, let me rephrase that. I was on the phone, and she was crying in the other room. And I'm talking to another drunk trying to save him, because at 3 years we know everything and we're going to save the world here. And I say to God, who I'm just starting to acknowledge again, please make this kid shut up. Okay? About a minute later, she stopped crying. But she had stopped crying because she had stopped breathing. Now, I don't in any way assume that God caused this. I don't believe God works that way. But she had had a seizure. But I bring that up that even after 3 years of recovery, what a selfish thing to pray. Because the book says our primary problem is selfishness. Self will run riot. To make a long story short, I scooped the girl up. I hung up the phone. I drove off. We went to the doctor. She was able to revive her. But when I came home, in the driveway was the fellow I was talking to. He cared. He cared. To me, one of the key words in all the steps is in the third step. Care. Don't turn your will and your life over to God. I'll get you. Turn your will and your life over to the care of God. See, what alcoholism did to me and many others, it robbed me of the capacity to care. And once you lose your capacity to care, you're as low as you can get. So it was through the program and through the people and through the spirituality of the program that I was blessed with learning how to care again. Caring frightened me because there is responsibility to loving. So being an irresponsible, selfish drunk, I had to work on that pretty hard. However, that little girl, that wasn't a one and done. She became very, very sick and handicapped. And so, 3-4 years sober, I'm wondering when all the great things are going to happen now that I'm sober. But I did what they told me to do, and I kept trying. And unfortunately, when I was on my 5th anniversary, September 2nd, 1980, I had walked out of the bedroom. She had been very, very sick, and we had taken her to every doctor imaginable. And I went into her bedroom, and she was dead in her bed. and had a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Use it as a cheap excuse or call for help. That was a hard choice. But I did what they told me to do. So I called, and they came.
Mm.
Sorry.
No, it's
No.
okay. What was her name, Rick?
Leanna.
Yeah, Leanna.
Yeah, thank you.
And didn't you tell me before that she had that condition that a movie was made about, that Lorenzo's oil?
Yeah, Lorenzo's
movie?
oil.
Yeah.
That's what she had.
And it was just, if you know in the time, it was a certain kind of olive oil,
Yep.
right? Would have made all the difference, maybe?
Would have made all the difference, and we didn't know it at the time because
No.
Lorenzo was 2 years later.
Yeah. Which is like, I get spirit wishes about all that.
Yeah, but, hundreds of people came. And today I look at her life
Mm-hmm.
as teaching me about the love of God. I don't understand a lot of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Or what happened there. Why didn't my daughter, we went to faith healers and priests and everything. And I realized that everyone has an Alpha and Omega. She had her 5 years, and I learned more about spirituality through her and through other people who were praying for us in the program and in church and outside than I ever had. And I learned that I was willing to go to any length.
Hmm.
And that was the key, because I can't tell you how many people I know who have what I call an M problem. And I would tell them that, and they would look at me. I might have told you at one time.
Yeah.
And, they would say, what's an M problem? And I said, well, you're willing to go to many lengths. And the book says you got to get rid of the M, not many lengths, any length.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your choice, okay? Because once you put the bottle down, it's your choice. How you want to look at life, how you want to learn, as long as you're willing to improve. My second favorite word in the steps. It doesn't say maintain. It says improve.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, when I do my 10th step at night to reflect on how I did that day, one of the questions I ask myself is, Rick, what'd you do today to improve your conscious contact with God as you understand him?
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't do anything, I got to get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't fulfilled my part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And the deal I made in the beginning, if I don't pick up the first drink or drug, will you give me the strength to handle everything else? That was the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do my part. And part of my part is to try to improve.
Mm-hmm.
So until they bury me, I'll try to improve. And improving is in sharing.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I love CCAR. I really do. I don't agree with everything about CCAR, but I love CCAR. I really, really do.
You don't have to.
No.
You don't have to agree.
With that comment, though, as I've gotten to now work in the recovery community and paying attention to the recovery movement across the country, I've really changed some of my thinking about a lot. And one of those things is the language that we choose to use and the concept or the belief that addiction is a brain disease and using different language. And so one of the things that I've been teaching the community that I'm working with is to use language of recovery and moving away from some of the negative language. And I noticed that you use drunk a lot, and that's one of those words we're trying to move our ally community away from because of what it causes, even though, for me personally, if I were to go to 12-step meeting, I would identify myself as, hi, my name is Sandy and I'm an alcoholic. But moving into that language, and I just wonder, this far into your recovery and being exposed to the national recovery movement, if you're starting to change some of your philosophies about that.
If I ever thought that my words or language would interfere with someone, I would change it.
Mm-hmm.
But, in basic training, we were all drunks, and so this is a way of me reminding myself that I am one drink away from the gutter.
Yeah.
And I've seen this happen. Bill Wilson had an interesting comment just before he died. He said, once you put the cork in the jug, everything else is a journey to humility. And this is one of the things. I'm an arrogant person by nature. I hate that, but that's the way I am. And I have to work on this constantly. And calling myself a drunk just reminds me that if I were ever to pick up another drink, it'd be like spitting in the face of God.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I take it that seriously.
Yeah.
Not just God, my friends, my family, my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
But I understand what you're saying, that words are blessings and curses. I am a writer, so I play with words all the time. Mm-hmm. And I know how to twist them, manipulate them, elevate them, denigrate them, use them to make you happy or slaughter you in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be careful with our words. And I know so many people who have walked away because of what I call irresponsible semantics. Someone said something to them that offended them, and they got outraged, and they just said, I'm out of here. Who suffered in the long run?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Who suffered in the long run because some yahoo said something stupid?
Mm-hmm.
And I understand where we can do this, but words are simply words. Watch actions. Watch how people live, even more than what they say. And I think that's the crucial part of it. Mm-hmm. The whole recovery, what I call the recovery empire, is trying to be inclusive. And I think there's a positive thing for that. But I think that if we become too oversensitive about what is being said or how it's being said, we miss the message. And to me, the message is, I can't, we can. I don't care what you say. I mean, I've dealt with tens of thousands of people easily over the years. I've heard my words or read my books or whatever the case might be. If I had to worry about every word that I said, give me a beer.
Mm-hmm. Hold my beer.
But the thing is, we have to be sensitive to it. So when I participate in CCAR, I try to change my language. Mm-hmm. Okay? When you ask me about my early life and my drinking experience, then I have to speak from my heart.
Sure.
And in my heart, I'm a drunk. But if I were going to, like when we go to Florida, I try to be, I hate the expression, a person in recovery. I'm sorry. But, sensitive. I think you have to be sensitive, but not oversensitive. Because alcoholics and drug addicts are pathetically oversensitive to so many different things. So that's my 2 cents take on that for what it's worth.
Why don't you like the term person in recovery?
It's too generic.
Okay.
It's too generic. It just, it's not, to me, it's not real enough. And it's not personal enough. Alcoholism is a personal, destructive, terminal illness. Mm-hmm. And for me, It's not attacking some person in recovery. It's attacking Rick Pacuconis for the purpose of destroying him and everyone he loves.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to make it very, very personal. That's just my opinion, you know. So
I think when I'm in one situation, I'll call myself the drunk, the alcoholic, the cocaine addict, whatever it might be. And that has a certain stigmatizing language in the general public. So when we say person in recovery, it also talks about the idea that you can recover from that illness. If I was everywhere saying my name is Phil, I'm an alcoholic, most people think I'm still drinking. So that's the reasoning, and I'm not disagreeing with that. Just the other side of that.
I agree. When you were in your milieu, as they say, I agree with that, and I would hope that you would continue that.
Yeah.
And I understand the all-embracing of this type of thing, using that type of generic language. I'm all for that.
Gotcha.
It's just be sensitive to where you are and who is there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about anyone to do this. If you're a drug addict and you're an alcoholic and you go to a meeting for alcoholics, talk about your alcoholism.
I agree.
Okay? Talk about your alcoholism and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And that's my own thing.
I do like what you said about being pathetically sensitive, though. I mean, a lot of times we are tiptoeing around so many issues when it's just be straight. I mean, you're very much the same way. You want to be you're very direct. And the more direct we can be, the better, oftentimes.
I'm direct, but I'm like, there's like sooner or later that's going to get me, but
well,
I can live with it because a lack of honesty, I have never seen help anybody.
Right.
Let me tell you this little fantasy I have. I'm getting older, so I don't have too many years left. But I used to tell this on the retreats when I would be doing the retreats, especially the older guys and some of the younger, smart, tough guys. I would say, imagine this. I say, honesty is the key number one principle in all of recovery, no matter what you're fighting. Okay. Matter of fact, it's so important that the number one is in the word honest. Mm-hmm. But imagine you should die. Okay. And you go up to heaven. And you go up to God after you've been sober a period of time and you've done all these good things and you're before God or before St. Peter. And you say, here I am. And St. Peter looks at you and says, who are you? Wait a minute. Don't you know who I am? I was the president of CCAR and I was his wife and I did this and I did that and all these things and I went to church. Don't you know who I am? And he said, I'm sorry you can't come in here. I know who you are, but you really don't know who you are yet. Go back and find out who you really, truly are, and then you'll be eligible to come into heaven, because only the real get into the celestial. And that's just something that kind of struck me. And that's what the steps are for. That's what CCAR is for. That's what all these things are for, to become real. Because real is okay. You're okay to be real. Whether you're, gentle or rough or whatnot, just be real. Mm-hmm. People, yourself included, have always said, you're a tough guy. You say some tough things. I've never said anything to anybody that they rejected because, at least when they knew that I cared about them, that I cared about you. So I'm going to tell you, don't be a jerk, okay? You got to change. Well, that doesn't sound too kind, but it's real and it's caring. And caring is the kindest thing you can do.
Mm-hmm. I'm still contemplating passing and going up and talking to God and him saying that to me. But
it's only a story.
It's only a story. Uh-huh. You always have meaning behind your story. I want to jump back a little bit. So on your 5th anniversary, sober anniversary, a child passed away. But then we have another little story about your next child.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. God forbid I should forget this.
No, but that.
Leanna was dying.
Mhm.
We knew that she was dying in front of our eyes. There was nothing I could do except stay sober and try to live a spiritual life. And it was killing me every day. But all of a sudden, my wife said to me, I'm pregnant. I said, what? What? You know. And so we went down. We had to go down to the head geneticist of Yale University to get a diagnosis. I had 7 wrong diagnoses on my daughter, Leanna. And we had to go down to Yale and talk to them. This is an interesting story, too. We bring Leanna down to the geneticist at Yale. She had to spend 2 days. I was a wreck. I had never left her alone since she got sick. So we put her in there, and I'm praying, God, send someone to watch over her while she's there. We go back. I can't sleep that night in the hotel. We're staying in New Haven. The next day I wake up. I said to my wife, I'm a wreck. I got to go to the meeting in New Haven at the 12-Step Club. I go up there. I go up to the 12-Step Club. I blurt out my anxiety, my fear, whatnot, the whole thing. And after the meeting was over, this beautiful, tall, blonde woman comes up and taps me on the shoulder. And I turn around and say, yes? And she goes, was your daughter's name Leanna? What, are you kidding? Yeah. How do you know that? Mm-hmm. She said, I was her nurse last night in the pediatric care section. I'll take good care of her.
Mm-hmm.
And her head geneticist finally told us what was wrong, that she only had a few months to live. And we left. But I never forget Judy. So anyway, we're pregnant. Time's going on. We have the baby. Leanne is very, very ill. Very ill. We're so upset we can't agree on a name. We're in the hospital, and there's a problem. The doctor comes to us, we have a problem with the new child. And she had a heart palpitation. And we didn't know what to do. So she was baptized in a neonatal unit. Meanwhile, I got one dying, one in the neonatal unit. What do you do? So my wife and I finally said, you know what? We got to come up with a name for this kid. And we came up with the only name that fit the only thing we had going for us at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Hope. We named her Hope. And the funny thing was, the head geneticist at Yale, when she found out when my wife was pregnant, he was, I don't know, whatever he was, but he said to me, you might want to consider an abortion, because I can't guarantee that the third child won't have the same cerebral problem that she died of a cerebral issue as this one. But abortion was not part of our religious heritage. So we said no. And I'm so grateful for that, because even though Hope was ill in the first few days, they were able to get her out of it and give her oxygen or digoxin, and she became the smartest one in the family.
Yeah.
And we saw her just a month ago. She moved up to Canada with her grandchildren, grandchildren.
Yeah.
I had a choice that day. What if I had chose not to trust God? Because it all comes down to, You either play God in the delusions of drinking, or you trust God, even through the anxiety of sobriety. So, fortunately, with all the people, we trusted God, and hope prevailed. So, that's the other one.
Amen.
Wow. 45 years of recovery, Rick. What else is it you'd like us to know? Do you have any thoughts about recovery?
Yeah. Just to wrap this up, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
It's our
And
privilege.
thank you for your skills. I've never seen so many cameras.
Yeah.
But, and this is a great ministry, and you've done wonders for here. I brag about you all the time.
Just not to me, right?
I know. I was
Not
like,
to you,
oh,
no. Not to you. But, the interesting thing is that you get, I'm almost 73, and I've been retired a long time, and I've had bucket lists. I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to go here, there, and everything. And I've crossed so many things off my bucket list that, I have to kind of be creative. I've written books, and I've spoken in big venues, and just wonderful life I've had because of sobriety. But there's one thing that I think my wife is going to have to cross off the list. Basically, however long I have left, is my last thing on the list is I want to die an honorable man.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to guarantee that is I have to try to continue to live an honorable life.
Mm-hmm.
God-centered, continue to be willing to help people. It's not as easy as it used to be, but I love the line in Scripture, we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God, in Romans. And this is my thing. Coming here, I have the hope that God may touch somebody because of my, words. And in so doing, I learn more about myself. Still learning about myself. I try to say thank you, because living sober is my way of being grateful to God and to my wife and to my family, and I want them to be proud of me. So I want to die an honorable man. And if it's today or 1,000 years from today, if I don't pick up the first drink today, and I say my prayers, and I try to do sometimes what I even don't want to do, I got a shot. And that's all you can ask for a drunk. Excuse my language.
Thank you, Rick.
If people wanted to get their hands on a book, where's the best place to get it?
Well, I publish my own books. There's a publishing company called Lulu.com.
Yeah.
And I published them under the name Richard Anthony.
Okay.
Which is my name, my middle name, my father's name. And all they are little books. I wrote little books because I dealt with alcoholics who didn't read big books. So they read little books. So I would write these things in little books, and I write proverbs. And I also have two little sites on Facebook. One is Richard Anthony Pacuconis. I write one of my proverbs every day. And I also have a site on Facebook called the Recovery Series, which I try to offer little tidbits of experience over the almost 46 years of trying to walk this path. So, if they help, thank you. Take what you need and leave the rest. And, keep praying for me. Because I at night when I say my prayers, I pray for everyone who may have listened to my words or read my words today, that, it might be a blessing.
there was a time early, I think we were just starting our relationship and I was getting divorced. And I was waxing eloquent at one of these meetings that you were in, Rick, and didn't really know you all that well. I think you had, I don't know, 10, 12 years of recovery, and I was just starting. And after the meeting, you came up to me and you were angry. And I thought you might congratulate me or something. And you stuck that finger right in my face and said, you can get bitter or you can get better. The choice is yours. And you walked away. And I probably came and told you that story, and you probably got a little angry at Rick too.
That's my initial reaction.
Right. And that has served me so well in the 33 years plus. So thank you for caring enough to tell me the truth and pose two viable options. Those were the two viable options I had right then and there. We fast forward to when I was on the trail and I was thinking of pondering quitting, and you left me a voicemail and you said, you only have two noble options left. Either finish this thing or die trying. And I read that, my heart warmed up, and I just laughed and said, well, those are the two options, I guess, in your mind. Other people see that and go, that's not very kind, or that's not very caring.
Yeah, I got all kinds of grief for making you wait 10 minutes to quit.
I know. And he's like, either finish or die trying. And that was just some of the motivation I needed. I think what our relationship also demonstrates to me, and which is really amazing in communities of recovery, in 12-step fellowship, is we all stand on the shoulders of the people that came before us. So I just want to thank you for letting me stand on your shoulders. It's meant the world to me, and indirectly it's meant a lot to to CCAR. So you're foundational to what has happened here. So just thank you for all that.
Thank you for being here, and I'm proud of both of you for what it's worth. God bless you.
Thanks, Rick.
And what you always like to say, you said in a breakfast at the Cosmic Omelet a few years ago now, that has, as we get older and our bodies might fail, and I see, dealing with parents and things like that, is we have to believe that the best is yet to come.
Amen. Amen.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all.